I ever hear the word designated player
DP.
or quote unquote DP come out of anybody's mouth when they're talking about what the NWSL should do to solve this problem, this to me would signal the end of our league.
Let's be clear. Love Tobin Heath. Think she was an absolutely dope footballer. Loved watching her play. But I do not agree with her take on DPs here for the NWSL. I think there's pros and cons, but I also think that the pros outweigh the cons in this case. But I want to hear what else she has to say.
If you create a system where one player or two players is deserving of some ridiculous amount of money and the rest of the team is basically paid what the NWSL is currently paying the rest of their players, this creates a massive chasm between
sports.
the worth of players. And I don't believe that belongs in team sports. And I believe that every single player should have the same right to go out and fight for their value and their worth. And I don't want to see only 3 good players on each team.
I think the problem with the argument and basing it off of, there's going to be a massive pay gap is like, that's professional sports. NBA, NHL, MLB, all of the major sports leagues in the United States. And even if you go overseas, the minimum salary is relatively low compared to what the max salary is, right? What the highest paid player is. There's a massive gap on a number of professional teams. That's just professional sports. The problem in the NWSL is that the minimum salary is just so low that it becomes more highlighted if a player is making $1 million and another player is making $50,000. But that's natural in a league that's young and growing. I think this argument also ignores a lot of the pros that would come from allowing DPs into the NWSL. Right? We're looking at greater investment in the women's game. There's a ton of opportunity in that space right now, and putting in DPs allows owners to spend more money, which then brings in higher profile players, which then in turn would hopefully increase revenue, which then gives players greater bargaining chip when they get to another CBA negotiation, which then would raise the minimum salary. And sure, some teams won't spend, and people are going to be worried about a massive gap between the teams that spend and the teams that won't. But that then creates an ecosystem of, well, if I'm not going to spend, how do I develop a world-class team, a team that can compete? Now you've got to invest more money into your academy, and maybe you become a selling club. Philadelphia Union is a great example of a club who may not always spend on 3 DPs, but they compete consistently. I definitely think there's more pros and cons to it, but I do think it's an interesting discussion.